So strap in and get ready.
The leaders in AFL SuperCoach are incoming, helping you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight AFL Show with your hosts, Big Horse and Skitty.
G'day and welcome back to the Insight AFL Show. I am your host, The Horse, and with me, my right-hand man, the man who I'd never like to go into battle without, Squiddy. Welcome back, brother.
Oh, it's good to be back, Horse. I'm very excited to be talking a bit of AFL with you and you beautiful bastards. It's fantastic. Good to see you guys as well. And I just want to let everyone know as well, no training regime, no Jamara Ugle-Hagen training regime. We got 100% balls to the wall. That's what we do here at Insight.
What that guy said. And joining us again after his blow-up appearance in his team preview a week ago, Hurls, welcome back, brother.
Thanks, Horse. Good to be back and good to finally meet the famous Squiddy and get on a podcast with him. Looking forward to it.
My pleasure.
People talk about lifelong goals, meeting the Queen, watching the cricket at Lords, running onto the MCG. But you just got to meet Squiddy. How's
That's
it
feel? I've done two of the other three as well, but this is right. Possibly go straight past all of those.
Oh, what a man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we'd love to talk about Squiddy being back tonight, we're going pod hunting. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The app has been open for over 24 hours now, and we've put our heads together to go and find some pods, some unpopular picks that we think you might find interesting or we think you may need to consider in this year's 2025 AFL SuperCoach season. So before we start, be the triple banger that we love so much. Like, share, subscribe. Well, that's 3. Let's put the bell on as well so you know when we're going live or when we drop a video. That way you can watch what we've got, all decent content, all quality content here at the Insight Fantasy Sports. Mm-hmm. Also, we've got a fair bit going on. Our Unlimited League has opened. Ladies and gentlemen, 356460. I repeat, 356460 for those of you listening on all good audio platforms. It's free. Jump in that league. If you get the top score that week in that league, you get a prize pack. Thanks to the guys at Standard Squeeze. It's easy. Ash and the guys at Standard Squeeze, sponsors for the 3rd year now. They've been with us since day one. Incredible sponsors of the show. Ripper bloke. Get behind them. And also, even if you don't win a prize, visit their website, standardsqueeze.com. Put in the code IFS15 and you get 15% off everything in store as well. That's not all tonight before we start, Hurls. We've got head-to-head leagues, mate. So we've started a $25, a $50, a $100, and a $250 head-to-head league. So if you're interested, please drop us a DM, ladies and gentlemen. We will hold you a spot or get you in. Mind you, though, there's one league that's already nearly full, so you're going to want to hurry. Otherwise, you may miss out. We're also running a $25 points league. That is unlimited. That's open to everyone. And this year, for the first time ever, we're running a $50 draft league. The draft will be in late February. More details about that will be revealed when we fill the league, but that's going to be something that you're not going to want to miss. Skitty, have you ever been part of a draft league?
I've done draft league for a couple of years. Went all right last year, got bowled over right at the very end, but that is what it is. Sometimes you miss a couple of pickups and that buries you, but that's all right. That's why we keep on top of it.
That's right. And for those of you that don't know, we've got our Patreon up and going at the moment. So if you want to become a member, weekly experts in there, including Hurls. We've got Nerds for Life in there. We've got the old boy from Dr. Supercoach. He's in there helping us write articles at the moment as well. We do weekly expert Q&A. So any questions that you may have about your Supercoach side, we're there to help you day and night. Buy, hold, and sell articles. You'll get them every week. Player rankings and a draft board. That's already in there. If you sign up to the $6 offer per month, that's a cup of coffee per month, you'll get our draft board. You'll get the top 250 players that we think you need to consider for this year's AFL SuperCoach season. But not only that, the top price mid prices or our top mid prices, and also the top 30 rookies that we think you're going to want to need in your side this year. Priority podcast questions. So if you're a member of the Patreon, your questions get answered first and all the time. And you get free entry into the Insight Cup. What more could you want, lads? Hurls, you just did a nice little article in there talking about the buy planner, mate. That was some nice work.
Just wrote a little bit about my oh shit moment. I put my first team together and realised as soon as I could check the buys that I was going to be absolutely screwed in round 12, 13. So I tried to just capture what I was thinking, and maybe some of the people out there can learn from that, and just how to spread some of your premiums. Rookies not so much because you're going to trade them by round 12, but certainly your premiums, you want to make sure they're not all in round 12, for example, unless you're going for leagues only, and then maybe that's a strategy you want to employ. But I'm loving writing the articles. I got a sneak peek of one from the ex-Doctor SuperCoach today. You really want to be listening to that, everyone. He's just next level. So it's some good stuff coming.
That's going to be released on our Patreon in a couple of weeks, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to want to miss that. The link will be in the description below. You click on the link. You can join for free. A couple of these articles we're writing at the moment are for free to give you a taste of what's to come for this year. So don't be shy. Join in. But we're here to talk PodHunters. Aren't we, Skitty?
Hell yeah, boy. Let's get stuck into some potties.
All right. Let's do it. So I've got to do the share screen, mate. Sorry.
Mate, that's fine.
So, when you're talking pod, Skitty, what do you instantly think?
Well, we think point of difference, I would assume, is what you're going for and what everyone else is going for. So basically, we're looking for players Basically, we're looking for players that aren't at the primo level. We're looking for people that are a little bit more cheaper price than others would be looking for. But it's also to be able to be the point of difference between what everyone else is picking and the players that can maybe be the guys that separate you from, the middle of the pack to the top score. We got to be able to get those players because that means everyone else doesn't have them, and they're the guys that can get the top score to be able to put you on top of the SuperCoach leagues. That's
right. We're going to give the SuperCoach app a bit of a shout out this year. They've added a few things in this year, like your consistency rating, your average at venues, your average against your opponents and whatnot, which I really, really like.
Mate, they have pulled that out of their ass. They did not have to. Everyone was just getting by last year with the crap that they had. But this year, well done, SuperCoach. Shout out to you guys. This is fantastic. Even the team picker to be able to send it over. Beautiful. Yeah, just little bits and pieces that's made the app definitely worthwhile having. But ladies and gentlemen, if you can't afford the app, that's okay, because we're here at the Insight Fantasy Sports Network. We are going to be bringing you the facts week in and week out. Mind you, the Insight Fantasy Sports AFL team are only going to go live once a week this year, because the second time we go live is going to be strictly for Patreon subscribers only. So another reason to get yourselves in there. But like Skitty said, we're pod hunting today. So as you can see, the top here, Caleb Daniel is the most owned player at 70% of the community that owns him. That's not what we're here to talk about, is it, Hurls?
Nah, I mean, everyone's going to pick blokes like that. We're looking for the guys probably under 10%. How can you differentiate your team from everyone else? I hope you're all subscribed, get into our Patreon, and what that can do, it can mean some teams are the same. So these pods are going to be critical for you winning your leagues, getting higher up in the rankings. You can't have all the same as everyone else. So we've got to find those ones that are really a little bit more diamond in the rough.
That's right. So for those of you that saw me just scroll through there, we've got quite a few, 700 players now that are still under 10% owned. But at the top of the list there, we see Sean Darcy. The news today came out about Sean Darcy that he's on his way over to Doha overseas for that the knee injury rehabilitation. You're in Perth, Hurls. Not to give too much away to our viewers at home and those listening on audio, it's not a fresh injury, is it? It's part of the management that the Fremantle Dockers have for his knee and to get him up for round one.
Yeah, they didn't seem too concerned. They seemed to think that it was just part of the sort of rehab that was already planned from last year. A few people have said today the reason he's going to Doha is they have all of the experts in one place. So you can actually do all of the different checkups that maybe in Australia it'd take you a few different days to get to different specialists and all of those things. So it's probably okay. it's also just something to keep an eye on. I mean, going to Doha in late January isn't something that I'd necessarily love for my pods and my primos at, your 500 and something thousand, but nothing to worry about yet, but just something to watch in the preseason.
For sure. Skitty, down Houston, 9.6% before we get into the little list that we've written up. Any interest there, mate?
Nah, no interest. Just purely because he's going to be missing that opening round as well, and then he's got the early bye. I know he's going to be able to do really, really well, but that suspension just kind of makes me go like, I'm not 100% on that because then he's an extra one behind. He's going to be a great player. I might be able to get him in later, but I'm just going to hope for a couple of stinkers to start the year while he gets reacquainted with his new teammates.
For sure. As you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Clark is our first pod at 5% owned. 5. So we're talking about the running defender who kicks the ball a lot of the time, spends a lot of time on field at only 5% owned. In 2024, we see that almost 105 he averaged for a season rank of 29th overall. What's your interest there, Skitty? What do you think?
Yeah, look, what I like about Clark as well is that he played every single game last season, and only 2 of those games were under 80 SuperCoach points. He had 16 tons out of those 23 games. So I really like how he's able to use the ball. Obviously, we make a joke about him and Ryan being CKC because they just love their little cheap kicks to each other, which is good. The difference between Clark and Ryan was Clark's scores pretty much stayed around the same besides those last 2 games, which were pretty crap. But Luke Ryan's plummeted when Alex Pearce wasn't in the team. So when Alex Pearce was in, Ryan had such good scores. They were immaculate. Clark seemed to stay around about the same. So he was very, very consistent with it. With ball, he's very, very good disposal efficiency-wise. 20 effective disposals a game have him as absolutely elite. So I reckon he could definitely be an option. His buy rounds 0 and 13, which is really, really prominent because the only people that have a buy in round 13 are Fremantle and St Kilda. So I reckon it's really, really good. I don't think he's got the upside to consistently do those massive scores like Ryan does because he doesn't get the intercept mark level of Ryan. But the kick ability that he has and the amount of the ball that he's able to get coming out of Freo's backline, masterclass. I really, really like it.
Anything you want to add there, Pearls, before we move on to our next one?
Just echoing everything that Skitty said. Maybe the only thing just to be aware of there, Freo did change their ball movement a little bit at the back end of last year. A little bit more sort of less chipping around. The 2 Seagulls sort of stopped chipping to each other and started running down the field. So it didn't drop off too much. I think he was still the 13th rated defender for the back half. So it still puts him in that premium category. Just keep an eye on that.
The other thing I will also say on top of that is, well, Hells, how many games did they win when they decided to switch up their game plan?
Yeah, not many.
Big fat 0, mate. 0-5.
They did fall off a cliff, you're right.
Yeah, go back to chipping the ball around the back line like we always love to see.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2024 was the year that I thought that Nick Martin would break out, and sure enough, he did. He ended up finishing the year. What did he finish? 28th overall. So quite good, 566K. He is listed as a defender only this year. Hurls, you're an Essendon man. At 3% owned at the moment. We see last year that he had a really rough start to the year with a 63 and 93 and then popped off for the majority of the year. Not really. He had a 75 against Geelong where they got smashed at the G, but nothing under 80 apart from that. So a relatively safe floor with a pretty good ceiling. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. He burnt some people last year, so I think that's why he's unique at the moment. So some people had him early and traded him out, and then he came good, so they traded him back in, and then he was like a yo-yo. So I think that's why maybe he's not as highly owned, and the Essendon buy in round 4 is probably scaring a few people off. I think he's a good pick. I think he's going to be safe again. He's training a bit with the midfield, which means that he needs to have a look at what that does to his scoring. I think he's going to be that utility, though, at Essendon. I think he'll play some back, some centre bounces, and then some half forward rolling up, chasing the ball around because Essendon need that last kick inside 50, and he's the one that can do it. I hear a lot of criticism about his kicking. I think that's a lot of super coaches who notice those kicks that were grubbers and went, clangers last year, most of those, I think, were when he was stationary in the back half and not really moving forward. When he was in the front half, his kicking was elite. So if they get him around the ball more, I think he might be okay.
He was ranked number 1 at Essendon for forward 50 entries that hit a target at over 30%.
Yeah. So, yeah, if they make that move and he's the last kick inside 50, I think the percentage disposal efficiency can go up. I guess the risk here is you're paying full price. He's not a discount at all, and you have a buy at round 4. Do you want to take those into your team structure? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Sure. Skiddy, a man that you brought up last year that the definition of a yo-yo was this man, and that's Sam de Koning from the Cats, 361K. He's listed as a defender. We've seen the size that he's put on this off-season. With the injury concerns surrounding Toby Conway, if he's the number 1 ruck at 1% owned at the moment, is there any interest from you?
Slightly, but it's only because if he is the ruck. We saw how good he was against TDK in that game against Carlton, where I think both of them scored over 120 or 130. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic there. But again, Geelong have shown time and time again that they are just so happy with having Reece Stanley do it or Mark Blitzarves, and they're fine with that. I think they do need SDK down the back line pretty vitally. He's so huge to what they do. And if he was a ruck, I'd be keen. If he's just a defender, no love for it, especially at 360.
Yeah. Let's get into his numbers when he did go into the ruck. 135, then 64, then 125, then 58, then 95. So it's like he has one good one shit one. So,
So that Carlton game was the game that he was in the ruck, and then he was thrown into the Hawthorn game halfway through the ruck. And then the only reason that 95 looks so good by the Dogs is when that was the game where Rory Lobb took the piss out of Jeremy Cameron, and the ball was living down there for SDK.
Yeah, gotcha. I've got one for Hurls here, and we talk about St Kilda, and now they have a very, very good buy. And we talk about the likes of Jack Sinclair, Ari Schoenmaker, Toby Travaglia, Mateus Philippou, Jack McRae, Rowan Marshall. The list goes on when we're talking Fremantle players as well, but St Kilda players because of that favourable buy that they have. But Wanganeen Malera at 4% owned at the moment. Ooh. Is there any interest there to go slightly different from Sinclair, save roughly 35K, and you've got someone who uses the ball as well as what Sinclair does out of the back line, Hurls?
I think it's a play for someone who's chasing a point of difference, which is what this pod's all about, right? It's about pods. Yeah. He was last year was ranked sort of about 13 in the first half of the year of defenders, and then in the second half of the year he jumped up to 11th as for total defence. So he's in the ballpark of your top 8 that you really are targeting. My only question mark is, is he the one that gets tagged, or does Sinclair get tagged if you've got a team that's got that defensive forward that wants to lock down the kicker? They might, one might get off the chain in a half, for example, and then they put the tagger to them, and the other one goes good in the second half. So you could be faced with that bit of a spiky kind of nature, but he's still a good pick. And if you want to be different to the crowd, because everyone's going Sinclair, I don't know what his ownership is, but it'll be up around the 50% mark, I'm guessing. So he could go someone different, and he's going to be okay.
Anything you want to add, Skitty?
No, I love what Earls just said. I'll second that. I think I feel more comfortable with Sinclair. That's why I'd probably lean him. But I can definitely say Wang's had it feels like he just doesn't like the contact at times. It kind of shuts him down a little bit, as Earl said, when they get the tag. So if he does, then it really nullifies him. So I can definitely agree with you there. But yeah, if you're looking for a pod, then Wang's not that far off from Sinclair. I just feel a bit more safe with Sinclair.
Jack Sinclair's ownership is 28.7%. So he's owned by, roughly nearly 30% of the community, whereas Nass is only by 4%. So
Great mass horse. That is fantastic work there by you, mate.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, mate. So let's move on to the midfield before I make a further dick of myself. And you know what? What better time than to give this bloke a shout out? The bloke with the shittest mo on television, on YouTube. It's not you. It's Ryan from Astute Newstead, personal sponsor of Lockie Whitfield. Use the promo code INSIDE if you want any help or if you need any help from Ryan. One of the best in the game when it comes to numbers. So if you need any money for a house, a car, a loan, paying back any debts, need to refinance, here's your man. He's Linktree. Tree's in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's back.
Always.
Is in the chat or is in the description down below. Let's get his head off the screen and back into some pods. Now, Skiddy, I'm going to start with you because no better man to ask about this guy than the grass eater himself. First name, Matthew. Go with it, son.
Row.
Matthew Rowell.
He's with 3 rounds this year.
Yeah, we'll start with 3. You can only... we need you to be good this year. But Matt Rowell only 2%. Why is this? Is it because of his booming start last year and then he shit the bed bad halfway through the year?
Yeah, it could definitely be that. Or it could be a lot of people have their ears to the ground or looking at our boy Nerds for Life, who's reporting that Stupid Sexy Flanders could be getting a lot more midfield time in the space of him being one of the most primary midfielders. Now, that means that either him, Tuk, Noah Anderson, or Mario, someone has to miss out there. So there's a good chance that it might be Mario. I don't think it'll be Anderson. Anderson's a good outside goer there. Flanders just does everything with it and Tuk's the inside bull. Mario is the other one. So I reckon that's where it could be. I think it's hard to know what the hell's going to be going on in that Gold Coast midfield. Plus, with the players that we're hearing are going to be rotating through the midfield during the game as well. Yeah, I just don't think I can confidently pick Matt Rao.
No. I've purposely left this up on the screen, Hurst, because I want to ask you, his last 3 scores against West Coast, who he plays in round 1, 122. What's that, sorry?
And then Adelaide in round 4. Ooh.
Yeah, so West Coast round 1, 122, 136, 165 in his last 3 against West Coast. But then he's got Melbourne, who he averages less than 80 against in round 3 after that round 2 bye. Surely you're not considering starting this man, eh?
He's not in my team at the moment. I think I disagree with Squid there about who's going to get kicked out. He'll be first in the middle. He's the ball. Okay. He's the ball winner. But what he lacks is he doesn't take any marks around the ground. He doesn't get involved in transition. So it's all clearance. And so that until that changes, he's not for me. He was the reason many people got off to Flyers last year. His first 7 games were massive, and those who had him and then were smart enough to jump off when he turned to shit, they were just absolutely smoking. But he's not my style until he can get some more footy around the ground. If he's only clearance, I don't want him.
For sure. Skiddy, this next bloke, I want to ask you this one because I've got a good one for Hurls next.
Perfect.
At 2% owned, this man, we actually had a conversation about this bloke yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of the North Melbourne Footy Club. I like him, but I don't love him. But this bloke, I love the way he goes about it, and that's Georgie Wardlaw.
That's right. I'll love him enough for both of us, mate. That is
I know you do.
Georgie Wardlaw is a very interesting one, but 461K. It's a lot for a guy that has had a little bit of injury troubles, but obviously we know when he is fit and firing, he can absolutely dominate and open up a game. He's got such a good ball winning. He can get it around the grounds, push forward, kicks goals, does a lot of it. I still wonder now what the hell North's midfield line's going to be exact. Like, I think most people would say, it'd be LDU, Wardlaw, and Sheasel, but, you got Jai Simpkin, you got Lukey Parker, there's Tom Powell, there's Will Phillips, there's a lot of guys that can go in there. So I'm just not sure about how it's all going to work there for North. I think I need a bit more certainty, but geez, he could, if he gets the right run and his body's right, he could smash that.
Anything you'd like to add, Hurls?
I think you need him to go 105 for that to be a successful pick. So if you think he can do that, then go for it. I'm a bit with Squid though. How's that midfield look? There's a lot of mouths to feed in there. LDU and and Sheasel are definitely going to be premium scorers. So can he be that 105 bloke as well? He's got the game for it, but I probably won't go there.
Yeah, it's the durability as well, which is a little bit iffy because he's had a couple of soft tissues. So yeah, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hurls, I want to ask you about this guy because at 2% owned at the moment.
Oh yeah, Brano.
He's actually in my team at the moment, and that's Jordan Dawson from the Adelaide Footy Club. Talk to me. Could you consider him?
He was one that, and many people got burnt by Jordan Dawson last year. He was actually good for me. I bought him in at a very discounted price, and I think there was a couple of weeks that he went 160s and won my league games in the last round on a Sunday. Ooh. So I'm not against Jordan Dawson. I guess the question marks over that Adelaide midfield. Like, I'm a massive James Peatling fan, and he's not for this pod because he's not a pod for sure. But what does that midfield look like? You've got Dawson, Laird rumoured to go out of there. They've brought in Peatling. They've still got Matt Crouch, who we all think is a bit of a problem, but he's still in there. I don't know whether he's going to have all of the time in the midfield, and he does tend to be the one that gets tagged whenever an opposition wants to tag someone. So you've got that tag risk as well. I don't mind the pick though. He's a great player. The year before last, he was brilliant.
Unbelievable.
The start skiddy for Jordan Dawson, he's got St Kilda, Essendon, North Melbourne in his first three, where we can see on the screen there he's got a top score of 130 in his last three against St Kilda, a top score of 168 against the Dons last year, and then he averages over 120 points against North in his last three. Some good numbers there.
Hey, mate, they're great numbers, and you're picking a great player. We know how much we all love Dawson. It's just that when Matt Crouch was in the midfield, it really hurt Dawson, and we saw him play forward, back, mid, forward, back, mid, forward, forward. He just swapped around wherever the hell Adelaide needed him to go, and he was happy to go and do what was best for the team. So that's the only worry for it, because we saw scores were down when he came out of the midfield and played elsewhere. And, yeah, that's the only knock I've got on Jordan Dawson. Otherwise than that, he's a bloody awesome player.
Yep. I've got in my notes here Nathan O'Driscoll, but I'm going to hold on to him for when we talk about the 200K or less podcast that we're going to do in a week's time. But there's another player that I want to ask you about here from the Fremantle Footy Club. He's been spoken about a little bit this pre-season because of the way that he's torching up the track, and that's Hayden Young. Hurls, you're a Perth man. He's only owned by 3% of the community at the moment. Why is it only 3%? Is it a bit like Nick Martin, how he got burnt early and people got off him?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. I think that. So last year he was also a yo-yo and people got off him and back on him and off him again. And also at the back end of the year, he seemed to be the midfielder that Freo trusted forward a lot. So he sort of went into the CBA for the opening bounce of a quarter, maybe the first couple. Then they moved him to rest forward and try to kick a goal up there. Now, Shy Bolton might impact that. They might not need him to do it this year. And if he stays full-time CBA mid, he could be a really good pod. He's got the scoring potential. He's got the inside and outside game to really go well. Just whether they give him enough CBAs is my question. So, again, another one to just keep a lookout for that in the preseason. And if Shy Bolton has a positive impact on Hayden Young, then maybe he's one to jump on.
For sure. Skiddy, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just noticed that it was 101 that he averaged last year. Obviously, he was thrown around a little bit. As Hurls said, he turned up 14 out of his 23 games, which is really bloody good. But I just want to ask both of you guys one thing. Are we still worried about Fife impacting Hayden Young because he did last year? Are we worried about that again this year? Or are we starting to be like, okay, Fifey's maybe starting to go to rotate out?
Yeah, I think Fifey's on the way out.
I do too, but they'll still probably use him a bit. They'll probably use him sparingly, but they will use him. And then on that same train of thought, though, does someone like Erasmus get a bit of a run in the middle because he's dominating in the waffle and can play inside? There's still a few inside mids. So, yeah, maybe Young's the one, like Nick Martin, who can play elsewhere. So they trust him elsewhere. Maybe that's his problem.
But that was the thing. That's why Fife kept playing in the midfield last year, because they needed a big body to run with Brayshaw and Sarong. They needed that weight to be able to be thrown around. That's why I'm wondering, like, Young, he's almost there in fairness. It's just if he can do it and he's that guy that takes Fife, that doesn't need to go throw his body weight around as much.
Yeah, maybe. Something to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
Lads, I'm going to give you 6 names here who are all under 10%. I'll let you pick out one to talk about one. So Darcy Parish at 4%.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that have been watching Insight Fantasy Sports, AFL podcast for the last couple of years, I'm an Essendon man. Don't pick Darcy Parish. Lockie Neal, 5%. Harley Reid, 6%.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Cripps, 6%. Adam Chera, 6%. Errol Goulden, 7%. Out of those 6 names that I just spat at you, Hurls, who would you pick and why?
I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I reckon Lockie Neal. For some reason, this bloke just gets no love in SuperCoach. Last year, he was phenomenal most of the year. He will be again this year. We know that. He does have the occasional game where he gets tagged, so he might get you a 70 occasionally, but he gets a lot of 160s to make up for it. And I think he's the one, I think, out of that bunch that I would trust the most. And the way my team's probably going to be set up, because I mentioned earlier, I think I'm in trouble with round 12 bye. I want a couple of those early bye players to spread out my bye risk. So Lockie Neal is certainly one that I've got on my radar. And if he has a good round 0 and starts you off with, a 140 already in the bank, he might be one that I go with.
Squiddy?
Mate, I don't hate that at all, what Hurls just said. But I know how much I said that I don't trust him and shit on him for a lot last year, but far out of this group, I'm almost leading Cripper. He's just... with all the news that's coming out of Carlton, how many injury points that happen with Cripps, he doesn't have that round. He has that round 0 bye as well. He's a little bit cheaper than most primos as well. He's under 600K. Big ticks there. All the injury news that is coming out of Carlton, we know that he does play really well in the starting games that he had. Oh, yeah, there you go, against Dogs. He has against the Hawks, not last year, but also Richmond, which he just absolutely dominates for every year. Yeah, he's one that I'm actually considering. I would like to see a bit more stability in his game, but I think with just he just played with so much more freedom, and the fact like he felt like he was the best player on the park, and the down low scores were always followed by a really, really good score. And it's not like it was just like 120s. He was going like 140s and stuff like that into a few safer games. So I'm almost tempted by Cripps at the moment for a pod. I'm just not sure if I'm bold enough to pull the trigger on him just yet. It's just going to depend how I'm going with how all my other buys are going to be working out. But they're not bad buys for Carlton either. So
no, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Both the names that Hurls and Squiddy brought up there, they both scored under 105 times last year, and that's all. And we can see here with Cripps, they weren't low scores, 286s, a 99, a 75, an 83. Sorry, he went 6 times. There was a 68 against the Pies at the G, and that was about it. But yeah, Lockie Neal, he's got that very, very high ceiling. And Cripps, consistency-wise, there's very few that score like him. Now,
what about you, Horst? Do you have one out of those 6 or 7 you mentioned that you're
Who's your other one?
about?
And tell us why it's Darcy Parish.
It is definitely not Darcy Parish. I like both of what you guys said there. I'm going to go a little bit fancy here.
Yes.
I'm going to go Adam Chera.
Oh.
Why? Because they've got a relatively soft start to the year. So they play against Richmond, Hawthorn, who are okay. Western Bulldogs are okay. But Carlton just gave him a 5-year extension. So to me, that's like, all right, we're installing faith in you. You're a good person. Your best football is elite. Let's get back to that. So I'm not even going to look at 2024 here. I'm going to look at 2023. And he had a period of time here where he went 106, 144, 134, 132, a 79 at Marvel, 108, 96, 129, 132, 127, 130, 111. And then he sort of went off the rails a little bit because he was hurt. So at 447, what's that mean he's priced at? Like it's 80?
Around Clarion territory?
He's about 80. Yeah, around Clary territory. Clary's going to be one that you're going to want to, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be on another podcast. But for someone that's got 110 point possibilities, 105, 110 point possibilities being scored or being priced, at 80 to start the year. There's 30 point upside there. So if you're talking numbers, you start off with a mid-pricer like this. Yeah, you've got to fork out a little bit more, but if he gets you that 105, 110, you make 100 to 120K out of him as well. There's your stepping stone into, could be coincidentally Sarong, who could drop a little bit of money, or Brayshaw, or these sorts of players who everyone in the AFL doesn't perform at a 120, 130 right throughout the season. There are times, even last year, Errol Goulden dropped down to about 520K and then went bang to finish the year. So if you get time when you're selling a player like this into an uber primo when they're down for a couple of weeks expecting a bounce back, that might be your ticket to success, Hurls.
Yeah, I like the pick. I've mentioned in my team picker pod that I think the SuperCoach who picks the right 2 or 3 blokes out of that midfield mid-pricer is going to really be flying this year. And, you know, we overrate players in the preseason, and we all think they're going to go 110 each. Reality is out of the 6, and I'm talking about Chera, I'm talking about Parrish, I'm talking about Oliver, I'm talking about Peatling, I'm talking about Ashcroft, and there was another one that I'm missing, Will Day. They're the 6. I reckon 3 of them probably do go 110, and 3 of them might not. And if you pick the right 2 or 3, you're laughing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Squiddy, we're going to start talking rucks now. And we've got four rucks here. The first one I'll bring up because we've just got some news tonight that first of all, we're talking about Darcy Fort. He's at 2% owned at the moment. And if you're owning him, ladies and gentlemen, there was news a couple of weeks ago that came out that the Big O was expected to miss until round 4, coming back from that injury. Now, word coming out of Brisbane today is that the non-contact hat or bib, whatever they wear at Brisbane, from his mouth is coming off next week. And he may be back into full contact training sooner than expected, and therefore may be back sooner than expected. So for both of you, when you've got a rookie from St Kilda, what's his name? Is it Boyd?
Boyd. You Boyd.
Yep. At 99K, who may play beside Marshall in round 1, or you've got Darcy Ford at 190K, who may play 1 or 2 games and then potentially be sitting on the sideline. So you've got dead money there. I'll ask you first, Skiddy, then I'll go to you, Hurls. Which way would you guys be going?
Boyd. That's the way I'd be going. Fort's still just, he's had some good games, had some good appearances, but yeah, I don't trust him to be there as me ruckman, especially if Big O's back before what? So they play round 0 and then their buys round 3, I think.
Yep.
So no, piss off. No, they'll have that buy. Big O will be back after the buy. He's not made me any money. No.
As good as what he played in the grand final too, Hurls, he only scored 68 SuperCoach points in the grand final as well.
Yeah, he's not going to score premium style points, so I'm not going to start him. Boyd, if Boyd plays, then he's going to be in everyone's team. I think Fort's too much of a risk, especially now. That news that the Big O might be back a bit sooner just kills off any chance Fort had of making you the cash you needed out of that pick. If you're going to pick a rookie price player, you either want them for 3 reasons. 1, to make you cash. It's not going to happen. 2, to be a dead rookie who you can use as a loophole. And that's even doubtful because he might be in and out all year. Or 3, you want him to be able to score well, and I don't think Fort scores enough to be able to justify it. So, he's a no for me.
Agreed.
I'm going to give you 3 names here because they're all at 1%. And I want you first, Hurls, then Skiddy, to pick a name here.
Yep.
Jordan Sweet is at 1%. Jared Witts is at 1%. And Big Nank, Toby Nankervis, is at 1%. Hurls, you first. Who are you picking out of those 3?
It's a tough one because none of them are going to make my team. But if I had to pick one, I think I'd trust Nank the most. There's injury risk with Nank, but there's not scoring risk. And if I'm going to spend big dollars, $594,000, like Witts is expensive too. Sweet's a bit cheaper, I guess. I'm going to go the guy I know is going to score 110, 120 a week and take the punt that he stays fit over the other guys who might score you 90 and you're in no man's land then, because I think Rucks isn't the position I like to toy with and have sort of some fake primos in. I like real primos in my ruck line, so he would be the one. But I probably won't start any of those three, to be fair.
Squiddy?
Well, we heard the news that Soldo has not started training yet for Port Adelaide. He's still coming off of an injury, so that means Jordan Sweet will get main ruck there. But we saw that last year, we saw that last year where we thought Sweet was the answer, came in, and then Hinkley didn't fully trust him, and then they chop and change with Soldo a bit, and then it went back to Sweet, and then it was a little bit of Soldo, it was a little bit of both. But, I mean, at the discounted price out of those guys, I'd take Sweet. But can I go sideways, horse?
Go.
4% owned is Lloyd Meek, and that is something that I am very, very much interested in. I am very much looking at Lloyd Meek. I don't care if Ned Reeves is rucking better. He gets around the ground better, way better than Ned Reeves. I do not care at all. Lloyd Meek was sensational at later part of the year. His hit out to advantage is just phenomenally good. He was third. He was third in the league last year for hit outs to advantage to that young Hawthorn midfield. Imagine what they're going to do when they are fully fit and firing. He was pulling in 140s. He was getting over 100s. Yeah, loved what Meek was able to do. He's only 4%. I reckon I could almost start him next to X.
Wow, big call. That'd be good.
I like it.
And sorry, also too, the other way that I would do it as well with Lloyd Meek is that he Hawthorn have, who is it? They start badly for Meek, but then in the 3 rounds after it, I think they have very, very favourable matchups, and that will be very, very nice for it. Yeah, sorry. So they, after the first 3, they then have, what is it? It's like West Coast, Geelong, and someone like that. Yeah, which is very, very tantalising.
100%, mate. So I'm just going to bring up. I'm going to bring up Jared Witts here. So in the last 5 games of last year, he scored 97, 161, 108, 95, and 121. So the upside is there for some big scoring there. We can see throughout the year, scored a 155 against West Coast. But let's be honest, who didn't score well against West Coast? Actually, you know what? His 2 big scores were against West Coast because he played them twice. He got a 161. Wow, Witsy, you've just blown my theory out of the water. But if we
come over on the Meek train.
Yeah, let's just jump on the Meek train. This is probably why he's at 1%. Then we go back to 2023 and pretty consistent, 140, 124. His low scores aren't that low, 91, 94, 99, consistently in and around the 115 to 130 mark. There's a couple 83, 75, but then he reels off a couple of hundreds or 1, 2, 3, 4, 500s in a row. So I think if you're spending 580, you're probably looking – you're probably just better to spend the extra 70K and get Cherry in or Maxi Gorn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd even feel a little bit more comfortable with even maybe getting English around that price. But either way, I don't want to stuff around with it. So
what's English's percentage at the moment? I think it's a good shout with English. The fallen primo who burnt everyone last year often has a bounce back, and people won't start him because they think, last year he was crap. But if Jamara doesn't play for an extended period, which means maybe Darcy plays full forward, then potentially English gets more ruck time than he even had last year, and that could be a good thing. It's one that I would entertain, I think, but I don't know if he's a pod, so we might be wasting our time on a pod.
No, I'll have a look. Tim English is at 14% owned.
14. Okay, a bit higher than a pod level, but yeah, still lowish.
My only concern would be when's his first game in WA, because that's a long wait to get a 150 score.
He does play better closer to WA, doesn't he?
He definitely does.
You're all over that, yeah.
Mate, that's where his golf membership is.
That's very true. Is that around the same place that Chad Warner just bought his apartment?
Oh, maybe. I think it's also close to where he bought a property as well.
Yeah, that's true. But he has re-signed at the Dogs, so good luck to him this year. Now, we're going to talk forwards. We've got 4 forwards here that we think are going to be relevant in SuperCoach conversation this year. And the first one I want to bring up is a bloke that I feel like got messed around a bit by the Carlton Footy Club to end the year, which is why he ended up being traded. Personally, I believe it was by request, and that's Matt Kennedy at 414K. If he gets midfield time, Hurls, he could be quite a good scorer. We see here that, it's not the booming scores of your 120s, 130s, but 96, 87, 103, 89, 90, 116, 89, 87, 93, 119, 99. He's fairly consistent there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's certainly one that you could consider if it looks like he's going to get high CBAs. Again, you're gonna risk Bevo here, right? That's the risk. But you would imagine that he wouldn't go to a team that's not going to give him CBAs, because that's why he probably got annoyed at Carlton, because he was in and out of that midfield and probably saw the writing on the wall that he's not going to get the midfield time. So if Bevo's promised him some midfield time, he could be one that goes well enough. And let's be honest, we don't need our forwards to average much more than 92, 93 to be in that ballpark for a keeper. So he's a chance.
Matt Kennedy's 1.6% owned at the moment on the dot.
Pretty low. I'm interested in the Bulldogs too, because I'm a fan of the young kid, Riley Sanders, and so it does add to the mix though about how many mouths are there to feed in that Bulldogs midfield, and who goes in and who doesn't, and do you want to spend the year getting Bevo? That's what we all worry about.
Where is he? I want to see if he's... Riley Sanders is 3.7% owned at the moment. But we do know that Bevo does like the bigger bodied midfielders, which works in favour for Matt Kennedy.
Yeah. I did read today that Treloar's a bit injured and not training at the minute. So if he has one of those years like he had a few years ago where he's in for 1 week and out for the next 2 or 3, it might give all of them an opportunity.
Yeah. Skiddy.
Yo, can I just quickly say, right, I have to say this because I know like Kennedy and Sanders, both of them forward, mid, DPP, but this is the same shit that we were saying last year with Harms, right? We were like, oh, he's gone from the D's, he's gone to the Dogs. There's a chance that, he's going to be able to play in the midfield and everything like that. What happened there? He played in the midfield like 2 games. I'm expecting this could be the exact same thing for Kennedy. Sanders got dropped because he wanted to play in the midfield, and Bevo's like, we have our midfield. And now, to make it even more difficult for the midfield rotation time, Ed Richards pulls his finger out and decides that he can play midfield like an absolute jet. So now they got Treloar, they've got Bont, they've got Libba, they've got Richards. They could throw a couple of other guys in there. Yeah, Kennedy might have a bit of run through there. I reckon it's going to be the same bullshit that we saw at Carlton. He's gone from a good midfield to another good midfield, and he's just going to be the guy left out there. He may have been promised. He may just get a little bit at the start. I reckon that could last like 3 rounds. We saw how Bevo did. He dropped bloody Daily Bale. Like, we don't know what the hell Bevo does, so I have no faith in him to be able to do this for Matt Kennedy.
Great call. Great call.
Now, Skiddy, calm down a little bit. We're not doing our Cone of the Week this week, but I want you to talk about someone that has been traded from Victoria to the West Coast, and that's Liam Baker.
Now, I'm a little bit more interested in this. With the forward mid DPP, yes, it is going to be going to West Coast, but mate, this is sky's the limit here for Baker. If we can get him half back or maybe a bit of midfield time, we know that he's a kind of guy that just kind of moves around a lot at Richmond, but the pressure is always going to be good. That's one thing you can count on. I feel like they're going to try and get the ball in his hands a lot as well to be able to, distribute to the young kids, because he's not bad by foot. He has a couple of little bit of iffy ones, but I feel like, this is one that can actually be really much looked at to be able to be – he's going to be able to return, I reckon, almost enough. As Hurls said, he only has to average 90 as a forward to be able to be right. So if we're getting a guy that's going half-back flank as a forward, then, yeah, it's around that awkward position at 443K. But it's definitely one that – it's not the worst. Let me just say that. And I'm pretty sure he's been better than that this year. Richmond, they have a game style. We're going to see if West Coast are going to be able to duplicate that for Baker. So he's a big watch in the preseason in my eyes.
Hurls, you're a Perth man?
Anything not a fan. I'll give you 4 numbers: 82, 77, 79, 82. They're his last 4-year averages.
Yep.
Richmond were good. They won a flag in that first year. They were shit in the last year. I think no matter what, he averages about that 80. And I don't know that there's any upside there, especially against and I know we're trying to find the pods for people, but if you're comparing prices with guys like this, and then you've got Caleb Daniel at 270,000, I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch for Baker, but
Okay.
if you like him, go for it. But not for me.
Yep. Rate that from you, Hurls.
Yeah, don't mind that at all. Now we're going to move on to another recruit from the Fremantle Footy Club, who he's got a bit of X factor about him. He is a bit over that 10% pod territory, but I feel like it's someone that we need to talk about, and that's Shai Bolton. He has been a forward primo in the past, averaging what he averaged in the 90s only 2 years ago, didn't he, Hurls?
Yeah, 96.7 2 years ago, 85, 84 the 2 years before that.
Yeah, so, and that was when, Richmond had a really, really poor year last year. But even during their premiership years, he's that bit of that X factor up forward. Now, we know that historically, he's a really, really poor starter to the year. He hasn't turned up in the first 3 rounds in the last 4 years, is it, Skiddy? Or he may have turned up once in the last 4 years in the first 3 rounds. So we do see here that he's got a pretty nice draw if you're talking about the last time he played against these teams. 92, round 1 against Geelong. Round 2, he plays Sydney. Last time he played them, 119. The time before that, 158. But then West Coast in the derby, 129 and averages 129, 105, 152. That's a shitload of points. So he actually plays all right against West Coast, doesn't he? So a fairly favourable start to the year. Skiddy, the breath of fresh air for Shai. We know that he's historically not a great starter, but at 416K, we spoke before that you could average for a good forward this year 90 to 95 and be a top forward. Do you see with potentially not as much midfield time here that he could do that?
Oh, mate, as Hurl said earlier, there's a chance that he could get a bit of midfield time. And then he also might be able to, obviously he'll just be in the rotation there. But I reckon, again, this is a big watch for pre-season because, Shai Bolton has definitely shown us that he is able to be a live wire and be able to score well. Granted, there's probably been a bit more midfield time at Richmond when he was scoring that well. But, I mean, I'm definitely going to keep my eyes open for Shai Bolton. It's a little bit less than Liam Baker. I'd be more interested in Bolton than I am in Baker if Baker's not off the half-back. But, I'm more than happy to have a look here at Shai Bolton. But I'm more keen to hear what Hurls is going to say because we know how much he hates Richmond players. So even if they're ex or current. So I'm so keen to hear what he's going to say about Shai Bolton.
I'm going to disappoint you here, Squid, and I'm going to say I actually like Shai Bolton.
Shit!
I don't know what his bloody name is.
Wow.
I think he's shown the potential, which gives me some comfort that he can do it again. He only needs, in the last few years, he's only had 50% CBAs at Richmond. So he doesn't need any higher than that to be an elite scorer. I think that helps. I want to see what Freo do with him. I think they'll play him for about that time. He'll get, half and half forward and mid. And I think there's going to be, we all expect Freo to go a little better this year. So the ball should be down there and he should kick some snags, which will always help. I guess my only concern on Bolton is what does your starting strategy look like? For example, for me, I'm not planning to go primos in the forward line. Yeah, if I was, he would be one I would consider, but I think he's going to be one that might be in all of our teams by the end of the year.
Could flex him.
You could do that. Yeah.
That brings us to our next point, the flex position. So we're not going to talk too much about it now because we've nearly been rolling for an hour and we do want to have some topics to talk about on later podcasts. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to stay around for that. But the flex, it is an interesting position. For me at the moment, I'm tackling it with 3 rucks. There are people that are putting rookies in there to try and generate that cash. Again, another podcast that's going to do about cash gen and how important that is. There are people that are putting in your mid-prices like your Luke Parkers or your Will Ashcrofts or these sorts of players that have got a pretty good ceiling that could boom, but then could also plateau and be around that 500K and go nowhere. So there is plenty of good stuff to talk about coming up. But for today, Hurls, thank you for joining us, mate. Your insights are always welcome here on the Insight Podcast Network.
My pleasure. Loving it. Loving talking SuperCoach with some good blokes.
Squiddy, it's fucking awesome that you're back, mate.
Pleasure to be back, mate, and can't wait to get stuck into the rest of these and get stuck into our season. We've got so much coming on. Also, follow us all on these on these Twitters and everything like that, because we've got our team previews coming out, and they are going lovely.
They're banging. Ladies and gentlemen, the link to the Patreon is down below. If you want to read the stories, the articles that we're putting together, it is free. Jump in, just click the link, make yourself a username. Happy days. If you do want to put in that little bit extra coin that helps us get through, it is $6 a month. It is a cup of coffee a month. You get access to everything we do, our trades, our insights, Q&As. We're there all the time for any questions that you may have. So jump in. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do us for tonight. We're going to see you again soon. The next episode is going to be on injuries and how that affects our SuperCoach teams. We'll see you then.